Hey, comic creators, artists, writers, world builders, this is your call to action. Here at Talkin Comics, we love diving into the stories behind the stories. Whether you're just starting out or you've been in the game for years, we want to hear your journey, your creative process, and what fuels your imagination. So, ready to talk comics with us? Message us or hit the link in our bio and be a guest on Talkin Comics. Appreciate you joining. Welcome to Talkin Comics. We got Dan Henk with us. Before we jump into your books and your work, can you tell us a little bit of background about yourself?
Well, it's a long, probably largely depressing story. But so like my parents are super military, super religious, super conservative, and I was like really into punk rock, which did not go very well. So basically they kicked me out of the house and they moved. So I spent like 8 months homeless, like living in the woods, like showers at McDonald's, Then eventually got a job. My first job was at Chuck E. Cheese, which sucks, but it was at Chuck E. Cheese. Then I worked a couple of like really shitty jobs, I worked at a Cthulhu place. I don't even think they're there anymore. And then I remember I wrecked my car. Well, actually, the person driving my car while I was drunk wrecked my car. But so then I moved in with my girlfriend in the city. But that was DC in the Marion Barry years, which is really bad. So I remember I got in a fight with the crackhead. I got stabbed. A bunch of stuff happened. But I eventually went to art school. I interviewed a bunch with comics, and they gave me a bunch of critiques. And I was like, I needed to get myself more polished. So I did. And I went to art school, and I started doing some stuff. I started appearing at a lot of local galleries, got some like critical acclaim. And I was like, my art teacher said, if you want to make it as an artist, you have to move to New York. So I moved to New York. And then I interviewed with DC Comics and Marvel Comics. And unfortunately, that was right when all the comic companies were about to go bust. Like the movies,
Right.
if it wasn't for the movies, there'd be like no DC or Marvel or anything. And I remember I interviewed with Andrew Helfer, and I was like all proud of my portfolio, and I showed him, and he's like, this might work in art school, but let me tell you what sells. And he opens up a Superman comic, is Superman punching Lex Luthor. He's like, you want to do this? I was like, no. He's like, we don't have a job for you. And that was the whole interview. I was really disappointed because like Andrew Helper at the time, I had the Vertigo line, so I'm like Sandman, Swamp Thing, Constantine. They'll be into my stuff, but yeah. But
Wow.
then I kind of like went my own way. Like I was doing like band album covers and like stuff for clothing companies, and I was working a regular job as a waiter at Hard Rock Cafe, which sucked. Then I was like, I remembered like as a little kid, because we live on these isolated army bases with like no TV or anything. So I go to the library and like check out huge stacks of books and read them all within a week. And I remember all those early pulp magazines had these stories with like awesome little illustrations in them that, I was like, why don't I do that? But instead of like little illustrations, I'll do like comic splash pages. So it'll be like a big focus on a dramatic scene. So that's what I started doing. Started like, I really want to tell stories, and I like to, draw as well. I was like, I'll combine the two. And originally I was going to combine them as a graphic novel, but after the whole experience, with DC, I was like, why don't I do this? Because I found out what I really like is I really like doing the splash pages, like the dramatic scenes. I don't like doing like little storyboards in between, like walks down this hall, opens this door, like that's kind of boring. But long story short, that's how I end up. I mean, there's more that goes on after that. Like I had brain cancer, my wife died and I had to run, bunch of stuff. So that's why I said it's your personal story. Anyways, I'm putting out my books and I'm hoping I make it. And even if I don't make it, I'm hoping to have some good stuff that people are into. If I'm lucky and I die and I'm making money, but I'm like Lovecraft, so like people are like, oh man, he inspired me. That'd be great.
That's a great
answer to a question I was going to ask later. But like, like I usually ask people, like, what you want people to, get out of what your work, or when they read your work, how do you want them to feel? What take away? Right.
Yeah,
And you pretty much just answered that, you're doing it, right?
yeah,
That's awesome, man. And you're also a tattoo artist. Do you still do that?
yeah. I own a shop here in New York. It's called the Abyss, and actually the shirt, like I drew the design for it, is one of the shop shirts. But yeah, we like at one point I was like the it guy in like tattooing, so I was like in all the magazines and all the books and everything. Like I've probably been in well over 100 magazines. But so we
Wow.
opened up a private studio. It's like most of what I do are like sleeves and back pieces and stuff like that. So it's kind of like people call it like kind of my man cave, so I have like all these like Lovecraft creatures in there and like comic books and stuff, but it's like I'll do long pieces in there, and I have a wall mounted TV, so like people watch horror movies, while they get tattooed, and they'll sit for like 4 hours or 6 hours, and the whole time they'll be watching like The Thing, or you will be watching, Near Dark, or some like iconic movie. Like, and I'm always surprised when people are like into those movies, but they haven't heard of the classics. So I'm like, oh, you gotta watch this.
Right. All right. I'm gonna add a question to my sheet for later, because you just gave me
An idea.
and it's Halloween, so this is perfect timing, right, for horror stuff. You can't see it, but I did a little research on you. But have you read this yet? The Last Days of H.P. Lovecraft?
Oh no, I haven't. Now,
That
what is
just
it?
came
Is it
out
a
a couple
comic?
weeks ago.
Is it a
Yeah, it's
comic
a
about
comic
his
book.
life?
Yeah,
Is
it's
it kind
about
of
the
like
last, like end of his life.
is it supposed to be like close to realism, or is it like they made it from stuff, or what?
Not sure. I don't know enough about HP. I got introduced to HP by a board game. Like, it's actually a card game, called Lovecraft Love Letter, and it's just a Cthulhu based, card game, and we play it a lot, in my little gaming group. And I didn't really know what it was, but I saw this comic come out, and I'm like, okay. So I started putting two and two together, and I interviewed another guy that had a Cthulhu based comic. And so I really been trying to learn a lot more about HP Lovecraft and stuff. And, I guess he was the real person, the author and creator of like Cthulhu, which I thought was pretty cool. Um, so what got you into writing to start with? Like, what was your first inspiration to start writing?
Well, I couldn't decide if I wanted to be an artist or a writer because I really enjoyed both. Like I said, I told you earlier, I guess we weren't filming yet, but like I told you, we used to live on like these isolated army bases, and we didn't have a TV, so we go to the library,
Hmm.
check out these big stacks of books. And like it'd be anything from like a whole bunch of like collected Dick Tracy comics to like actual books. I remember I read all the Stainless Steel Rat ones, So, so I remember I loved telling stories and I loved art, and I always did both. And I couldn't decide which path I wanted to go down. Then when I was 14, I read Watchmen. I was like, wow, I can do both. So that really sold me on that. It was only quite a bit later I learned how hard that is. But
As far as doing it in a comic book, doing both?
Uh, yeah, well, the thing is, like, so if you tell a very complex story, I mean, you need basically like Watchmen, where it's like 12 issues, you know, because there's no way you can do it in like one issue. But when you're the artist, yeah, I told you this earlier too, like, you really enjoy like the splash pages, like the action scenes, the things that really make you go, oh, wow, awesome. But the little like goes down this hallway, opens this door, goes to the kitchen, picks up coffee. Those are kind of boring to draw, and you spend
Right.
at least half your time doing that. So I'm like, why don't I just like draw the most dramatic scenes and then write. And then I feel that kind of be the best of both worlds. Like you bring like the stuff, into focus. It'd be like, it would help to picture it by having a visual, thing to like grab you, but also you'd be talking.
That's awesome. So the book that's on Kickstarter now, go into that. What is that about? How is it, go into that.
Well, he's kind of so originally it was going to be a graphic novel. It was called the Black Seas Infinity, and it's a story about like basically like recovered alien technology that's reverse engineered. Then the government kind of like they treat you like shit, so they fire the engineer, and then he is all mad and he goes back and there's like a bloody heist and everything. And while all this going on, the whole government falls apart. So the guy's like stealing, he's running away from the government, and then like everything's like all weird around him, it's all dark. There are like people forming like little militias and stuff. And then so long story short, like eventually the aliens that made that technology come back, and there's almost an intergalactic incident and stuff. So it's a little bit longer than what I'm describing, but it's like that's the first story. And then I put out a second thing that was like a collection of short stories. But I love that comic book thing where like everyone's in the same continuity. So it's all like the same universe. So they're kind of Easter eggs buried in there where like one is connected to the other. And then I've gone on since then, I've written a third book, and the third book like brings them all together. So the what I'm doing with the Kickstarter is I got the rights back to the first and the second one. You have no idea the game's publisher pulling you, but I got the rights back, and I rewrote it like 60 hours on each book rewrites. Added
Wow.
more text, added all sorts of stuff. So I was like, I put them out back in 2011. Hopefully evolved a lot since then, like, taking all sorts of seminars and, got all sorts of tips and all sorts of advice from beta readers. So I'm like, I'm going to go back and make these stories that I love so much, much stronger. So that's what I did. I went back in, and like I said, I also added like some illustrations. I'm like, why don't I add a couple more like drawings in there to really like pull you in? So that's what I did. And I'm actually pretty proud of them. They've gone out and they've gotten nothing but like, 5-star reviews. So like I was excited
Awesome.
that people liked them so much.
So they're more of a novel, right, with illustrations in them, and then turns into a comic.
It's more of a novel with illustrations in it, but the first one, like at the end of it, is like I put out an extended hardcover edition. It's like one of the reward tiers on Kickstarter. So I include a lot of the storyboard pages from the initial proposal for DC Comics. And I talk a little bit about that. I talk about the story, and I talk about the storyboard pages. But there's more, including more illustrations, just in the novel itself, and then that follows it up, like kind of like the backstory or whatever.
Right. That's really cool. That's what made you want to just do it that way and not a full graphic novel? Was just because you wanted to do it all yourself?
Well, after DC turned me down, uh, it actually takes a long time to do stuff the right way. Like if I do a full splash page, 3 days. And that's 3 days of not doing anything else. So it's like,
Right.
it's kind of hard for me to like dedicate that much time to a full on comic book, and like, the pages aren't flash pages. They're more like, standard storyboard panels. That might be like down to a day, but still, that's a lot. I remember I really liked those early like pulp magazines, that had like all the illustrations, like, like Doc Savage and the Shadow and the Spider and stuff. I was like, the only thing I did like about them is I wish the illustrations were bigger and a little bit more, like some of them were like very well done, but some of them were very crude. I was like, not just they're all done by like, the people I like Bernie Wrightson or Wally Wood or Ed Davis, or like all these amazing comic artists. So imagine if they did all those illustrations. So, taking that as a kind of a cue, I was like, why don't I my single biggest influence that a lot of people don't know who he is John Talbot. So him and Steve Bissette did the early Swamp Things with Alan Moore. And I love the look of that. So why don't I do like these dramatic splash pages, kind of inspired by him. And I actually, I thought it was great praise when Steve Bissette said he really liked one of the pages I did. So I was like, oh, awesome.
Well, that's all the validation you need right there. Right? What's the most challenging aspect of writing for you?
I think, well, so it's kind of gone through stages. like the first stage was what's the best way to express it so it sounds interesting and you don't bore people. And at first I was over detailing because I'm like, oh, I'm a visual artist too, so I'm describing way too much. But if you read well-told stories by Stephen King or whatever, it's kind of the tale is crafted, but he doesn't tell you too much because he leaves a little bit up to the imagination, which is actually very important for the way that you put a story together in your mind. I think that's also part of why, if you read a book, the book is often way better than the movie. Because it's that's not how I pictured that. So even if the movie is directly, feeding off the book, the way that the director visualizes it might not be the way you visualize it.
You
So
visualize.
for instance, if a guy greets you, you don't need to know the color of his shirt. You don't need to know all these little extraneous details. Right. And at first I was over describing it, so it's dragging down the story. But then eventually you learn what to add, what to take out. So probably to answer your question more directly, the hardest thing to learn, because I already knew the art, because I went to art school, I took all the art classes, I did all those art for people, but the writing thing, I took creative writing classes, but I didn't graduate in writing. So at first I feel like I wasn't doing it as fluidly as I am now. I do a deep dive into all sorts of seminars and have feedback from all sorts of readers that go, oh, this is what I should do. But I like the way it paid
So
off.
yeah, years of feedback. Feedback's the best. I was scared to death when I got feedback or was asking for feedback for my script for my comic. I was I went and ran and hid when I handed it off, for them to read. Yeah. But then they came back and said it was okay. So I was like, all right, we're on to something here. What do you have any other, you mentioned a couple influences. Do you have any other big influences in your life that got you into writing and drawing?
Well, I'd say because I read so much, I'm I've always been huge in comic books. At one point I was even doing tables at conventions and selling comic books, so there are a lot of comic artists I can name, and I love their art. Like Mike Kaluta, John Taliban, Brian Boland, like Wally Wood, Ed dude, we could be here all day and I could talk about all my
All day
influences.
talking.
Yeah. But I remember as far as writing, the first time I read Lovecraft, that was the first time that I really felt like something spoke to me. Oh, this is kind of because I live on these isolated army bases in the middle of nowhere and build tree forts and go BMX biking. I kind of live in my own little world, but it's I I don't know, everything seemed way more straightforward until Lovecraft. Then maybe it's his whole speculative fiction, weird stuff that you kind of you can kind of visualize, but you can't quite. That spoke to me, especially as a rebellious punk rock kid. I was like, dude, that's it. That's what I need. So that really,
That's
yeah, it really felt like that was my thing, my discovery, and there were lots of people that wrote stuff that I liked. I'm a big fan of Graham Matheson. He wrote Stir of Echoes. He wrote Hell House. He wrote He wrote I Am Legend, which has been made into a movie 3 times, but I don't think he ever managed to really capture it. Uh, you know,
Right.
there are a lot of people a lot of people say they bring up a Stephen King. You're like, oh well, Stephen King, right? Like, well, I like what he did with some stuff, but I want to say I'm a big Stephen King fan because I think he has very believable characters, and he definitely has a great imagination. But he has a problem with those endings. A lot of his stories have weak endings.
Yeah. I did not read a lot growing up. I did for whatever I had to read for school, and that was it. But the one book I did read that I remember reading was The Long Walk, when he was under the Richard Bachman, series. And then they just did a movie. So I'm really looking forward to actually watching that movie, because it'll be one of the few times I get to be to watch the movie and, like you said a few minutes ago, know if the book's better or not. So I'll be interested to know. But the ending is very, like you said, it's very weak. I was very upset at the ending of that book. So let's go into your
did you
art.
See the movie, The
Go ahead.
Mist? Did you see the movie
The
The
Abyss?
Mist?
The Mist? Yes, The Mist, yes.
Right. So you know how that has a very dark, dramatic ending.
Mm-hmm.
No spoilers, for people who haven't seen it, but Stephen King, apparently that's not in the source material. So Stephen King saw the movie and he goes, I wish I thought that.
Wow, that's awesome. That's high praise, because it wasn't it M. Night Shyamalan that did that?
No,
Pretty sure.
it wasn't.
No?
M. Night is one of those guys who I feel like his first couple movies were amazing and then he totally dropped off. But no, it wasn't.
Right. Okay. So your artwork, do you work I watched a video earlier, I think it was on your Kickstarter, but you were showing off a lot of art. Is that all your art behind you too?
No, it's I feel like you would kind of be egotistical to put my own art up there. So those are people that
Okay.
inspired me. Although if you go to
Okay.
my studio, it's all my art. Because hey, I kind of want to show people what I do when I'm convincing them I should tattoo them. Yeah.
Right. Okay, makes sense. When you're drawing something or painting, do you paint? Do you draw? You work digitally? What is the medium you use to most
I don't
often?
work digitally. It's probably because it's I'm old, so it's one of those things where you're yeah, I don't value it as much. And I've seen some great digital paintings, but I always feel a little bit of a step down when I find out I was digital. But yeah, oil painting I like a lot. I so the illustration that I like a lot is that John Tobin style, or a lot of people say, "Oh, you're inspired by Bernie Wrightson." It's I like Bernie Wrightson, but he's a little more cartoonish to me than I like to be. I like to be a little more realistic, especially some of his
Yeah,
faces are very cartoony. So
yours looks very realistic.
oh, thank you. Yeah, that's why I say John Tobin because he's my single biggest influence.
Awesome.
I like that style. So if you illustrate, I like to really illustrate that style. I like to do oil paintings, and the oil paintings I do. I don't know who I describe. I'm a big fan of Frazetta, so I really like Frank's work a lot. There are other people that I'm kind of inspired by, but I would say that I do work similar to theirs. John Harris, he's a British painter. He has a book out called Mass, and it's amazing. It's everything he does looks like it's so 3D. It's about to pop off a page. But he's
Wow.
a little bit more surreal than straight up realism. So that's not what I do. I really appreciate it. I mean, I have some of his prints. In fact, some of the ones up there are some of his prints.
Okay. Awesome. What is one thing that that you might realize now that you wish you knew when you started?
Well, there are a few things. One thing that, well, as far as one thing I wish I knew, um, probably the single biggest thing I wish I knew is when you really want something, just keep at it. And I'll give you an example. Like, for instance, with tattooing, people come for an apprenticeship all the time. And, they might come in for an apprenticeship. First of all, bring something to the table because people come in and I'm like, okay, let me see your sketchbook. Well, I don't have one, but, I have a few sketches at home. Don't do that. Then I don't take you seriously. But if you come in and I'll throw it and I'm not really impressed, I'll be like, all right, man, sorry. This, like I'll try not to say like, oh, this garbage, go away. But I'll try and say, yeah, man, I don't have time, blah blah, whatever. Same with like if you look at comic books, like how many times did all the comic artists apply before they finally got the job? Like some of them, it was like 100 times before they finally got the job. McFarlane, like
Right.
I think he applied 100 times, literally. But it's like just keep trying, keep like producing stuff. I remember I like in the early days I was doing stuff like Marvel and DC, and also because I'm old, there were all those indie comic companies around, like Malibu, like Kitchen Sink, like like all these people, and I sent them stuff. And at first, some of them wouldn't reply, or when they did, they'd be like, I remember Marvel, I did some piece with Captain America, like, no, well, Captain America would do this, Captain America would do that. And you shouldn't be like, oh, them. You should be like, okay, well, what are they looking for? You just keep trying, keep trying. And when I was a kid, I thought more like when you say no, that's like a hard no. It's not a hard no. It means I want to see you
Right.
trying some more. So that's what I wish I knew. Because like I remember DC would say no, Marvel would say no, and I'm like, oh fuck them. Oh, like you get all like in your feelings about it. But take it for what it is, and don't take it as personally. Take it more as like I need to work harder.
I like that's great advice. My next question was advice for inspiring creators, and that's perfect. Just keep working at it. A no in this industry is not a hard no. It's keep
Yeah.
working, keep trying.
The
Right.
one thing I will say is like almost everybody
So yeah.
who's a good creator will talk to you. They'll be like, oh yeah, man, well I do this or I do that. Ask questions and listen to your inspirations. That's all I've got.
That's great advice. That's great advice. Ask questions. That's what I do on the podcast. I ask questions. Sorry, dad joke.
Dun, dun.
Oh,
We tell dad jokes at work all day. So I have tons of dad jokes.
right.
You want to hear one? I'll tell you one.
Yes.
All right. Did you hear about the circus fire?
No.
It's intense.
It's great. That's great. I love it. I will be using that. Intense. All right, so talk about the Kickstarter real quick. Go there, look at it. We'll have the links in the description and all that fun stuff. But just, sell everybody on that I have a couple more questions, but sell everybody on that Kickstarter real quick.
Okay, well, my Kickstarter, which I've loved people, like, it's not just a matter of like making it fun, but I want people to check out my work. So I have like stuff like ebooks and audiobooks, and I have them very low price because I want you to get a copy and check it out. So I appreciate it if you give me a review. You can give me 1 star, you can say it sucks, but reviews help. So, but I also have I have some people that really love my stuff. I'm like, what I have for you is I have a limited signed in number hardcover that I will hand draw an illustration in. So if you get the hardcover, it is personalized just for you. So when I die, it's going to be worth a ton of money. I mean, you got to wait till I die, but I live in New York City, so it could be a day now.
Oh my goodness. I hope not. Is there anything I have some fun questions to do, but before that, is there anything that we didn't talk about or I didn't ask you that you want to talk about or we need to talk about?
Not really. What I would say is, if anybody's like a creator that's like, has questions and starting up or how to progress or what they should do next, they can feel free to shoot me an email. I'll give them advice. It's Dan Henk at gmail.com is DanHenk at gmail.com. So if you just get a hold of me, like I'll give you advice. I'm not going to give you like a full on hour long seminar. I don't have time, but I'll
Right.
definitely give you advice.
That's awesome. Well, I'm sure people appreciate that. All right, so here's the fun questions. Who was the first favorite superhero or comic book character that you liked or discovered?
Um, this is kind of obscure, so I don't know if everyone's going to recognize this, but I really like Machine Man.
Machine Man. Okay. Where was that from?
Well, it was a Marvel character, and it's supposed to be basically this guy created sentient robots. He was building for the military, and he was on the 10th one when the military decided, all right, we're done with the project, just blow them all up. So he basically told the robot, he's like, he took the explosive out of it. He's like, run. And then he died. The explosion goes off. So then Machine Man becomes like the superhero, and I don't think any of the stories were that great, but the idea I thought was amazing. And like originally it was Steve Ditko, and then I forget, like a couple other people did it after that. Or no, originally it was Jack Kirby. Then it was Steve Ditko,
Jack
and then
Kirby.
a couple
Okay.
other people did it. And then it was shut down for a while. And then Barry Windsor Smith did a 4-page series, like miniseries. And I mean, he's an awesome illustrator, so he did a great job on it. And he also wrote it, so it's a more complex, well told story. And he's been resurrected a couple times since then, but that was the character that spoke to me.
Awesome. Was that the first comic book you ever read? Do you remember the first comic book you ever read?
Oh, like I probably the first comic books I ever like I said, I'm old, so I remember like when they sold them at Spinner Racks and like 7-Elevens, and
Yeah.
I get like I always like the slightly off characters. Like I really like the Falcon, like Alpha Flight. I like the stuff that wasn't like as mainstream.
Yeah. And you mentioned Dick Tracy earlier. I'm a big Dick Tracy fan.
Yeah. I remember at the library they had like a hardcover, like about this big, like giant thing.
Wow.
But it was all collections of Dick Tracy. And I remember like I was like behind, like I had a bunk bed, double bed with my brother. So I'm like behind it with a flashlight, like you're reading the whole thing. But yeah,
That's
I remember it's
awesome.
awesome. And actually a lot of those are like very dark. You'd be surprised.
Yeah, the older ones for
Yeah.
sure. What is your favorite? Do you have a favorite current series? Do you read anything currently, comic
Yeah,
wise?
a little bit less just because I get so busy. But pretty much anything by Garth Ennis I check out. Um, I feel like he's kind of hit or miss. Like he'll do like he's pretty sure the ones which are amazing. But then he did like his take on the Shadow. I'm a big Shadow fan. I was like, that's not the Shadow. That was like the Garth Ennis Shadow. So
Gotcha.
like at one point, with my favorite creators were putting out stuff on a regular basis, like Alan Moore. Like I've read probably everything by Alan Moore. I've read almost everything by Frank Miller, although I heard he kind of went off the rails with this whole like after 9/11, he was like he had like some superheroes like fighting Muslims, and it was like I'm just not interested in that anymore. But before that,
Right.
he was awesome.
If you could live in any comic book universe, what would it be?
Yeah, that's hard to say. I don't know. Maybe see the thing is I wouldn't want to live in a comic universe unless I could be like one of those superheroes. Like I want a power. It could be like some
You
weird
already live
reason,
in New York, so that's you're already there, kind of.
kind of. Mine's a power, but as
Yeah.
far as we know.
All right. So
Yeah.
if right, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
I don't know. Is it just one, or is it something like Superman, where you have like a couple powers all like amalgamated into
Sure,
one character?
go
'Cause
with
I really
that.
like. I don't like the Superman comics because Superman is kind of boring to me. But I love his powers. His powers are awesome.
Yeah, he can fly. He's Man of Steel, faster than a train.
Yeah.
All that or stop. Yeah, whatever it is. All right. What comic book character would you want as your sidekick? Any sidekick or any character? Sorry.
I don't know if it'd be like a sidekick per se, like Robin and Batman, but like, if I wanted somebody that was like my partner to help me out with stuff, I say like Tony Stark, Iron Man, like the guy's fucking super bright. If you have the powers of Superman, you don't necessarily need like somebody next to you that's just as strong, but you need somebody that's really smart. And I kind
It
of feel
has the
like
money,
Tony Stark would have the answers to almost everything.
right? I like that. All right. This is the last one. If your life were a comic book, what would the title be?
I don't know. What would the title be? I don't know. I would probably I'd probably pick the name. This is the name of my anthology that I just put out, but I think it's totally appropriate. It's like life is indeed comic, but the joke is on mankind.
Yep, I love that. I lied actually. I have one more because you made me think of it earlier.
Okay.
And it's Halloween. So what's your favorite horror movie?
Oh, The Shining. The original
The
Stanley
Shining.
Kubrick, The
Okay.
Shining. And I know Stephen King was not a big fan of that, mainly because it wasn't a super loyal to his book. But Stanley Kubrick is a master. And like him doing horror, just like he took is the next level.
Right. That's
I mean,
awesome.
come on,
Any
like
other
dead
Halloween?
twins, like a elevator opening up and like blood coming out. I mean, a zombie lady in a hotel room. I mean, come on.
Yeah, Stanley Kubrick. I can't say his name. He did a lot of really good stuff.
Yeah,
And they
Clockwork
say he cheated
Orange,
with
Full
NASA,
Metal
but
Jacket.
he did Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah,
Oh, that was one of my favorite movies ever. I didn't realize he did that. I am horrible and I'm trying to get better. Just like when I read comics, right? So I read a comic, I'm trying to like be a lot better about, reading who the author is, who the artist is, who the letter is. Cause before I was just reading because I wanted to read the story. But I'm trying to get a lot better at, understanding basically, because I'm interviewing a lot of indie creators, like getting to know the creator and knowing the name of the creator, that's been so rewarding. So I'm trying to get better at that. Well, awesome. Well, go check out the Kickstarter. Your books are on Amazon too, right? Where else can we get your older books and stuff?
well, everything is on Amazon. If you just look up, I have an author page, Dan Henk. So if you look at them on Amazon, it's there. Barnes and Nobles, they're on Apple like ebooks. Like every this is why I say everywhere fine books is sold. But yeah, you can find Barnes and
That's right.
Nobles.
Everywhere fine books are sold.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, it was great having you on. I appreciate it. Any last words, final words for the crowd?
So I wish I had something witty. I will tell you. So the like one of the main books for the Kickstarter is called "Down Highways in the Dark," and it's an Alan Moore quote because I'm a huge Alan Moore fan. So in one of the Swamp Thing comics, at the end of it, it's like Abigail Arcane after they get away from her evil uncle. but he's not really dead, but you kind of think he's like out of picture, so maybe he's dead. So Alan Moore has her like fading off in the background, kind of like in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where it's like, you know, he has a saw and he's just like spinning around. So it's kind of like some of the evils going on. So it's like, it says, the small fly she goes, harsh words forgiven, down highways in the dark, by demons driven. That's a great quote. So I was like, I like have that I use for my book. It's down highways in the dark, by demons driven.
Love that. That's awesome. Well, go check out your book. Go check out your socials. I'll have all that in the description below. And I really appreciate having you on.
Yeah, thanks for me.
In a world of heroes, villains, and epic stories,
Braha, Anakan, and their ultimate sidekick, Panel P, take you on adventures each week.
showing off their comic book hauls,
Fun trivia and games, honest reviews,
and inspiring conversations with the creators and consumers who make it all possible.
join in on the conversation.
This is Talkin Comics.
Trying to start a podcast but feeling stuck? At Aquadio, we help creators make waves with everything you need to bring your voice to life. Hosting, recording, editing, and marketing. Whether you're starting from scratch or just need a little help polishing your sound, we're here to hydropower your creativity. Comment on this video or DM us today and let's dive in.